Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode 163. I'm here today with Dakota J. Miller, um, author and veteran. It says PhD on your Twitter, if I'm correct. What's the PhD
Yes,
in?
health sciences.
Very nice. You know, I actually just graduated from college last month, or yes, technically still last month. So yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. Yes.
Wh- What'd you get your degree in?
Um, well, journalism, but they called it professional media where I went to college. So, yeah, it's funny. I actually got a notification that they're sending in my diploma soon. So, very much looking forward to getting it in the mail.
That's awesome. Where'd you go?
University of Central Oklahoma.
How'd you like it?
It's quite nice. It was very nice. I really enjoyed it. Um, um, a lot closer than OU. I'll say that.
Did you get to go on campus or did you do it remote?
I did go on campus. Yeah. Um,
Oh, was that nice?
It was, yeah. It's nice little campus. It's not you know, I really enjoyed it. It was a good time.
It's always nice to see where that loan money's going towards.
Yeah. um. Oh man, I think they were building something when I left. So you know how that is.
Yeah, they always have to build something new to make it look nice, so more people fund it and go to school there. You know, actually, I only look for schools that have very overstayed buildings. I don't care about the programs. It just needs to have a building. So, if it has like a miniature Roman Colosseum, then I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the school now.
Well, yeah. No, I just I yeah. It's just yeah. They're always doing something. Like it was funny because I worked at the newspaper at my college, and we had some clashes with our with the president of the college, and it was funny when I graduated and I saw him. I shook his hand. It was a good time. I didn't really say anything to him, but it was just kind of funny.
Are you able to talk about the clashes? I'm just curious.
Oh, it was the
If not, that's
usual.
fine.
I mean, I won't, go into specifics, but like, it's the usual kind of we wrote something and he was kind of miffed about it, and we just kind of. I mean, I mostly wrote in entertainment, so I didn't really get like a close, exploration of it. But
Yeah.
oh, we wrote something. He didn't really care for it. Um, you know how it is.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, same thing happened to me with my doctoral program, and I had a post go viral Christmas Day about it, and
Oh,
apparently
really?
I'm a horrible person now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. It's funny. I guess I stoke controversy wherever I go. Either that or I journalism is a very thankless job, which is true.
But
But
it's funny too
I was in
because like
I did a story at the other college I went to. I went to a community college before I went to UCO. And I wrote about the old president of where I went to community college. He stepped down because he got creative with the funding, if you will. Um, well, they got some new furniture. my 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 parents love this, and I did a story talking about the furniture. Well, I guess that set off a massive controversy. Because like the newspaper for a bit got shut down, and it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing, and I was just not just because of the furniture story. There was a bunch of other stuff that was going on, but I was just kind of like, what? It's crazy. Sorry if that was a bad explanation there.
No, no, I totally get it. That they don't want people
I
judging
actually
them
won an
what they're spending
award
their
for
money
it.
on.
But
Really?
yeah, no, it's a little funny. Or actually, you know what? I'll just pull it out real quick. Probably won't be able to get a good look at it because it's very see through. But yes, this puppy right here,
Oh,
First
that's
Amendment
awesome.
Award. Yeah,
What year did you get that?
2022.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm curious, how hard is it to do that in college while maintaining your studies?
I mean, I had to kind of schedule around, when I would write and just days when I would do schoolwork. So a lot of it is just scheduling. It's not easy though. I'll just say that.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't imagine it. Now, did you have like a fedora and a trench coat walking around getting all your
Sadly,
stuff?
no. My parents thought about getting me a hat that said "Scoop" on it, but that didn't unfortunately it didn't happen. Because I was like, I don't know. It seems a little on the nose there. Um, Funny story about the award. My boss at the time was like, "Hey, Britton, you're up for the First Amendment Award." And I'm like, and he even offered to like, it's in Dallas, so I was like, oh, okay. And I'm just like, well, one, I don't know if I'm gonna win this damn thing, and two, he offered to like pay so I could like go down to the awards and get it, and I was like, I mean, I appreciate that, but I feel kind of uncomfortable with that, and also I don't know if I'm gonna win. I didn't think I was gonna win, and then and then a few days pass. I go back into the office, and they're like, "Hey, Britton, you won the award." So I was like, "Oh, well, there you go." And then after that, I harassed the people into giving me the award because I don't want to, I don't want to. I want to get that and have it on my in my office so I could show it off and be like, I won that.
All I can think about is that scene from the Jim Carrey Grinch movie when he doesn't want to go to the Who party and he's like, "There's an award of some sort."
What's funny? I actually watched that last Christmas, and and there's that scene where he goes to the party and he actually has like a good time. And you're like, oh, maybe he'll come around, and then I think it's the mayor.
Yeah,
he's just a jerk to him, and he's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna ruin Christmas now.
that's a movie we have on every Christmas, and I swear it gets funnier. And I don't know if you've noticed the adult jokes that are in the movie. I never got it as a kid, and there's just so many adult jokes. Um, and so watching it with the kids now, I'm just laughing like crazy, and they don't even get it.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite parts of the movie is the flashback when he's a kid and like the girl's like, "Oh," and he just does like a little like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "What?"
Do you know that actor? I think he died right before the movie came out, that kid.
Oh yeah. Didn't he have like a type of dwarfism or something like that?
I think it was something like that, and he ended up passing away. I think when I looked on IMDb, it was like right before when the movie came out. So I guess hopefully he got an early screening. But I was like, that kid's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, that's too bad, but yeah, it's anyway, going back to that. I got the award. I don't know how I got it cuz it was a story about furniture, but hey, I'm taking it.
Well, it was just furniture, but you have to follow the money.
Exactly. Yeah. No. But you said you
So
had
what's
a you
next
had
for
a
you?
you had a little instance too where I don't know if you got in trouble with the did you get in trouble with the like authorities of the college you were at?
Oh no, no, it wasn't that. So when you do a PhD, you go through the program, and the first most of the program, I say most, it's like any schoolwork, just like any other semesters, and you're just doing that, right? And then you have to do a dissertation, and so you have to be thinking about the topic for a while. You have to know what's going on. Well, when I was doing my master's, I stumbled across some data that was a bit concerning to me, and it was on the infant mortality rates.
Oh.
And um, it's kind of a hot topic, and I'm not going to try to get political or anything. I'm just trying to state the facts. But African American women suffer at like four times the rate of any other demographic. And so whenever you look at a lot of college papers, the White House at the time when I was doing it was just talking about that the answer is just racism. But like that's not an answer in science. Like you might be able to go, the answer is racism due to XYZ. But if you're just like, oh, it's just racism, well,
Well,
what are we talking about, right? So, um, I found a pattern that I wanted to explore, and I talked about this on my post that people are saying I'm just bigoted, but I found a pattern of the infant mortality rates with geographical location and demographics. So I was pointing towards I thought might be socioeconomic, which is something that we've written about some before, but I was specifically looking for geographical location and trying to cross-reference it with data from CDC. Uh, my chair said I was therefore a bigot for even suggesting that it wasn't racism. And I was like, oh no, maybe it could be, but we need something empirical. This is science. I need something that I can count. If it's racism, is it 10%? Is it 20%? Like how do you count it? And the answer you get from a lot of people is like, well, you can't count that. It's like, well, we need something to count because if we can find something that we can put a number, attach a number to it, then we can try to solve this issue. We can and a lot of people don't like it. I was called a bigot for it, and I was like, I'm not like the thing with research is I could have researched it and I could have been dead wrong, and that's fine. It's simply research. If I were to go, I think the sky is red, and we see blue as an optical illusion, and I were to do some research to say the sky is red or whatnot, I'd come back and I could be wrong. But part of science is just simply researching a hypothesis. So I ended up having to switch. My dissertation topic, and then I switched it to the health of remote workers, and I got a new chair that was all for it, and I graduated with that as my dissertation. So
it's interesting how that works. My parents and a bunch of older people often complain about like SJW stuff in college, and I didn't really see a lot of that. I mean, I met some I met some teachers who were more progressive minded. So I mean, I guess I did see a
mhm.
little bit of it, but it wasn't like I didn't like do a paper and it was like, oh, well, you're bigoted, and I'm just like, what? So I
And it's
remember
funny too.
I remember the last semester I did I did this class where we were putting this magazine together because I did creative writing as a minor, and um we had this event basically. It was like we went to this place down in Edmond where they call it the Jazz Lab basically. Like they play like jazz music over there. Um and we did like it was like a poetry reading. So I was like, oh, okay. So I went to that. It was actually a good time. But like before they did that, they went on stage and were like, "Oh, we're on a Native American land." And I was just kind of like, you know, like I get what they're doing, but I really don't see what this has to do with uh reading poetry to people. I didn't say anything. I just sat there and took it, and it was an experience. But I remember emailing a friend later. I'm like, I really I don't get this. I mean, I get what they were saying. I'm not. I mean, they weren't
Yeah,
wrong. It was just kind of like, why are you saying this here?
yeah. I see people do those land acknowledgements all the time, and all I think about is like, then leave and give your property to a Native American if you really care about it. Um,
Yeah, I know. It's like I mean, I could go down to Osage County and be like, well, if it's like, well, if you want the land back, you can move in my house. But I'm just like,
yeah.
I don't think that would be helpful. They'd be like, go away. So
Yeah, I think it's funny when people try to do the the pandering, but they don't actually do anything behind it. Um, and it's just a little segue, but my thoughts went to it. I actually, in my book, I have some Native Americans, and because it's set in the 17th century, there's a bit of racism in the book. And some people were like, "Oh, you're just a bigot that wants to write about racism." Like, no, like if I'm going to be authentic to the book, there has to be a little bit. And so, while there is some racism towards the natives, I actually contacted a descendant of the tribe that the natives are based on and had to read the book and be like, hey, do these feel right to your tribe, like
Well, I
to
was
your
about
ancestors?
well, I was about to say I do see the jacket with the Native American behind you. I don't know. I didn't bring up the Native American thing because I saw that, but I did see it.
Yeah, so that jacket actually, my grandfather designed it. So
Oh,
he was a character. He would dress up as a cowboy and he'd go to the Grand Ole Opry and he would wear jackets like that and he would act like a celebrity. I kid you not, people would get his autograph. They thought he was famous. He just had this weird reputation. It was just his little hobby. He loved pretending he was famous and it worked. So he designed jackets like that and the cowboy hat that's on it.
mm.
And it has his little logo in it, which is cowboy. And it's funny, dude can't read. He has a third grade education, couldn't read, but he was able to design these jackets.
Huh.
And he passed away, gosh, November of 2024. And he actually wanted to be buried in his Rolls Royce. Now, I'm not rich. He bought like an old Rolls Royce for I don't know how much, but he bought it, refurbished it. I don't want
He
people to
must
think, oh, this
he
guy
must
comes from
have
money.
he must have
He
had
like
he must have had a lot of entertaining stories.
He did. He had so many. So he actually, so he wanted to be buried in it, and he wanted a museum with all of his jackets. And after he passed away, my family was just like, "Oh, take the jackets." And it's actually kind of fun. He wanted me to have all of it, and I was like, "No." And then my grandma was like, "Yeah, you're not getting all of it." I was like, "Cool." I didn't want it, but she said you can have a jacket. So I got that, and this is my little museum to him. So above it is the heritage of where the name Miller comes from, and then the little jacket is next to it, and it's just a little thing. But yeah, he designed it. He loved everything cowboy, and so what I want to do, and I wanted to do it after this book and before my next. I don't know if I'll get to it, but I at his funeral I ended up writing like a 6 page mini story. And what he would do is he had this active imagination to where and me and him both. Everyone says I'm the most like him in the family, and we could make up stories, and I don't want to say lies, but I guess technically, and we would just run with it, and we could do it to each other. It's almost like we were reading each other's minds. Like we could get in front of people and just make up the most ludicrous statement, and then just have people believe in us. Like what? And so at this funeral, I was given a eulogy and I read some of that story. And one of the story was like, yeah, we used to rob trains together and we play cowboys and Indians and we robbed a bank and like all these things that clearly didn't happen. And my grandma actually chewed me out because she said, "Oh, now the whole town thinks that he was a bank robber." And I was no, it's a fictional story. So I want to write some children's books that have his stories and my stories and the adventures we went on. Like he lived next to a pond, so we'd go across it, and we thought that we were in the Amazon. So that's a story right there. But yeah, he was very, and the dude was obsessed with money. He did not trust the banks. He had a toilet seat that had money in it. Um,
What?
yeah, he had a belt, and this has been going on for probably 5 years, if not longer, all the way until he passed. So he had a belt that had $500 bills, not $500 bills, $500
Oh
bills,
my
like
god.
which they don't even make anymore. And that was his favorite belt to wear. And you could even see the plastic where people had been trying to get it. And so he went on a cruise, I think to like the Bahamas or something, I can't remember. And he got surrounded by some locals who were about to jump him. And this guy is such a storyteller. He's like, "Do you really think I'd be dumb enough to walk around with real money?" The answer is yes. Yes, he is dumb enough to do that, but he also has a mouth that got him out of the situation.
Man, that's crazy.
So just crazy character. Uh, a lot of my family, whenever they got a jacket, I think they like wear it out to concerts and stuff. Um, he wanted a museum, and my grandma didn't want to make a museum. She felt it would feel like a shrine. So I just took the little jacket that I inherited, and I put a museum in my office, so to speak. And I think that's the best to do.
Fair enough, but yeah, he sounds like an entertaining character.
It's funny when my in-laws met him, they thought he was BSing them. They're like, "There's no way these stories are true. There's no way any of this is true." And then he brought out the photo album and showed them that he had pictures with like George Strait. He has
Yo,
is
that's
it a
awesome.
Cadillac? He's friends with Johnny Cash's cousin and bought his car from him. Like just weird stuff. It's like, and he never met a stranger.
Yo, that's crazy, dude. No, I can't say I've met Johnny Cash's cousin. No, it's crazy. No, granddad sounds like just sounds like a really interesting guy.
He was, and he's greatly missed.
So he had a third grade, so like he couldn't read at all, or was it just like really rudimentary?
So I think it was rudimentary. He could get some words out, but he couldn't really read. And it's actually funny. The family got mad at me. So the reason I wrote the story, and I've kind of had a falling out with my family, but a couple years before he passed away, he had a stroke. And the doctor said, "Hey, to help your brain activity, you need to read 30 minutes a day." And so my family, being my family, they said, "Oh, we're all going to write stories from him so he can read how much we love him. It'll be in his book of love or something like that." And I just laughed. I was like, "But he can't read." And it's like that scene from Sunny, and they're like, "He'll adapt. He'll adapt to reading." Like, so what they so they thought I was a jerk making fun of him. I was like, the dude can't read. Like, you need to tell the doctor. Maybe the doctor will give him a coloring book. And like, I'm not being mean. I'm just talking about something to stimulate the brain. It was so. Anyways, since he couldn't read, they all wrote him stories, and my grandma ended up reading it to him. And I refused to do it because I was like, I'm not going to. To me, it felt like pandering as well. They didn't love him, and then, well, I say that it did not seem that way. They could say the same about me, I guess. But when we went to the funeral, all the stories in the book that they read was about how hard he worked, which really offended me. Now, don't get me wrong, he was a extremely hard worker. Everyone knew he was a hard worker. I could go on for hours talking about how hard he worked. And so at the eulogy, instead of there being like three people, my grandma wanted everyone in the family to have a chance. And I originally said no because I'm like, I'm not going to join in on this. And I ended up going, you know what? I just have to say something or I'll regret it. So every single person before me was like, I loved him so much, he worked hard. I loved him so much, he worked hard. I loved him so much, he worked hard. And then I went up there and I was like, I'm not going to talk about that because to me, I believe we're more than our work. And then I just talked about, what I told you earlier. And on top of that, I made a copy and I buried it with him. And apparently, I'm a bad person because my family didn't bury anything with him. So therefore, I'm bad because I asked my grandma if I could. And so it's a whole thing. But yeah,
Sounds like a
it's
messy family situation. Jeez.
oh, it is. And to make matters worse, it's and so my family does not believe in alcohol. Like even in the Bible, Jesus didn't drink wine, it was grape juice. Um,
What?
dead serious. Like
Come on.
they so
Grape
I'm a
juice wasn't
connoisseur.
invented until the 1930s. Like, come on.
They believe it and they think I'm some alcoholic. I like to think I'm a connoisseur. So my grandfather always wanted to have a drink with me, and my grandma wouldn't let him. Now, I've heard stories that before I was born, he was an alcoholic. I
Oh
don't know
man.
how true they are. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But anyways, we could never have a drink. So after he was buried, I got some very expensive bourbon that I drink, and I poured it on his grave. And
Oh boy.
and they had a conniption that I would dishonor his grave in such a way. And I was like, you know, it's a symbolic gesture of me having one drink with him because you wouldn't let him. And if you want to get down to brass tacks, as awful as it sounds, I poured liquid on dirt. It's not much worse than rain. Like, sorry. And they were like, you dishonored his memory. I'm like, maybe you dishonored his life with how you kept him away. Like, he lived in the basement.
Oh jeez. Lived in a
Could
basement. Oh man.
Yeah, I couldn't even go upstairs to use his money toilet seat after a while. My grandma made him go use the bathroom outside.
Oh jeez. Well, that's Well, that's
This actually, that's all hearsay. We don't know how true that is, so I'll just say that
oh well, that's yeah, that's again, that sounds like a messy situation. Jeez.
it's very entertaining.
What? Oh, sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
Oh, I said it's very entertaining.
Oh well, I imagine it is. Oh, jeez, I was like, well, I mean, my family isn't too dysfunctional. Two is the key word there.
Uh, I've realized I think every family is dysfunctional.
You know what? That's true. Even the ones that seem put together has something going on.
Yeah, I will say for me, I ended up after all that drama and beforehand, I cut ties with my family. I went to the funeral to have respect for him, and then after that, I was like, you know what, we're done. And so, and partly it could be my fault. I mean, I was the one that knowingly knew their aversion to alcohol, poured it on his grave. I still think it was a symbolism of respect, but I get the perspective. So, but my family, they're also pretty sanctimonious with their faith too. So you know how I was talking about calling people out that I disagree with. They'll go, "Oh, you just aren't a Christian like I am. You just don't understand God like I do." And I like to think I'm a bit of an apologist, so I'll just call them out and be like, "Okay." So, like for example, my family doesn't think you can ever question the Bible or Christianity at all. Like you're not allowed to ask questions because by asking questions, you therefore don't believe. And so I'm the black sheep in the family, and my original degree was theology before I changed it. So I love studying it. And my cousins were asking me a couple years ago. They're going to school and they're asking me about God and this and that. And what did they say? It was something to the effect of, "Hey, how do you hear God when you pray? Like, what is it like for you? Because I don't hear anything." And I described it, I was like, you kind of know. Like, you just hear something and you know. It's really hard to describe. And they're like, "But I don't hear anything." And my aunt goes, "Well, I audibly hear God. So maybe you just need faith like mine." And I was like, "Wait, you're telling me when you pray, you hear God as clear as day? This isn't a metaphor. You hear him as if I were in the room." She said, "Yes." I said, "You're either crazy or a liar." And she was like, "Do you not believe in God?" And I was like, "Look, even in the Bible, the amount of people who heard God and thought they were crazy, and that's in the Bible. That's all the people that we know, the famous ones, and they thought they were crazy. And for you to not even question that you're crazy, you're either pandering or you're schizophrenic." And she was like, "Well, God just tells me to do this." So I was like, "Well, has God told you to do this?" And she's like, "No." I was like, "Oh, would that be too hard for you? Almost something that God is known for asking us to do?"
Oh
And
Lord.
she, and so they think I'm some heathen now, and I'm just like, I'm not going to do this. Or like my I have other family members that they'll like post nudes on the internet, and they'll be like, "Ah, I'm just proud of the body God gave me." I'm like, "I'm pretty sure He wouldn't be wanting you to do that. You just don't have a relationship with God like I do." You know what? Maybe I don't want that relationship, and I don't know if you have it with God because I don't think He's up for that. But who knows? Maybe I'm the heathen.
It's a bit. You have your family has a very odd view of God. Say that.
Well, if you think about it, I feel like a lot of humanity does that, where Um, I was having this argument the other day, and I finally found a way to kind of phrase it that I think makes sense to me, and I doubt it'll change anyone's minds because in the 20, not 20, in the many, many years of having this argument, it's never changed anyone's mind. But it was on objective morality, and I'm someone who thinks morality is objective.
Hmm.
And we can go back and forth on everything, but something that I came up with the other day that just makes sense. Someone was telling me morality is not objective because you killing isn't objectively wrong. Look at the terrorist. Terrorists kill infidels. So therefore, morality is subjective. And then my counter, and this is where it all clicked, is okay, but if I were to try to kill the terrorist, they would think that's wrong because they don't want to be killed. So it's not so much as killing is justified in their opinion. It's that they've manipulated the psychology to justify the killing. And actually, there's an interesting thing with language and psychology that you see. So humans do not want to kill. You can have people that will talk about war, this and that, but on a fundamental basis, humans are adverse to killing. That's why whenever you go to basic and all this, you have to get people to get used to it. But it's fundamentally humans don't want to kill. Um, and so to get people to kill and the way they kill, it's very intimate. Killing is actually, it can be about as intimate as sexual intercourse. So, for example, they've done studies. If you see someone that is slashed, like here, then that isn't as intimate as a stab because a stabbing is a penetration type, same with sexual intercourse, and it's more intimate. So the further out you get from killing, so you go stabbing, and then further out would be slashing, further out would be bows and arrows, then guns and missiles. But the further away removed you are, the easier it is to do it. And one way to remove yourself is to make someone lesser than human. So what you'll see a lot, and you've probably seen it in the news, is hey, the person I don't like isn't a person. They're insert whatever.
Mm.
They're a commie, they're a fascist, they're whatever have you. But by doing that little trick, psychologically you're changing your mind to, well, that's not Dakota. That's something else. That's lesser than human. Therefore, I can kill them. But then if you switch it and you go, oh, well, Britton's not any of those things. Can I kill him? Oh, no, he's not those things, so you can't kill him. So it's almost like you've switched it into a way to justify killing. So it's not that killing is okay. It's just, it's like hunting. It's okay to hunt animals. So I'm not killing a person. I'm just killing someone who deserves it. So does that make sense? So, and that was my argument for objective morality because it's never okay to kill. We simply have to twist the fabric of our reality to justify why it's okay to kill, as
You know,
opposed to,
it's funny you say that. I was actually on a podcast the other day with a guy I consider a friend. His name's Sebastian Weiss. He's written some stuff. And we were talking about like because in my view, I find that humanity has the potential to do great things. We just hold ourselves back by being violent and short-sighted and whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
Racism, stupidity, or we have these things. I believe man has fallen, is what I'm getting at,
yep,
um, and while I think wanting to change the world is a admirable goal, I always tell my friends prepare to be disappointed
yep.
because there's just some things about the world that can't change. And he's just like, well, he was like, oh, I think that's a fatalistic view. I find that you know humans are naturally cooperative, which is true. I'm not, it's not
Yeah.
false. I don't think humanity is one thing per se. Um, but the way he put it was like, well, yeah, that's why people don't kill like naturally. If they did, like they'd be like busting their load while killing somebody. I'm like, I wouldn't quite put it like that, but okay, I see what your point is sound.
Well, so with that, one of the studies that they found is after the Civil War. So during the Civil War, you have muskets and you have to do all the stuff. You have to, uh, I'm ashamed to say, as much as I use guns, I don't know how to properly use a musket. But anyways, you go through the whole thing and then you have to stuff a ball bearing down into it, right? Now, sometimes on occasion, due to war, you're getting freaked out and you might stuff a second ball bearing, just forgetting that you already stuffed it with the first. And what happens, you shoot it and it just kind of rolls out. What they found was they found muskets that had over 13 ball bearings stuffed in it. And their conclusion was there were people that were so against killing their fellow man that they just stood there stuffing it to make it look like that they were shooting. And then that way they never had to shoot their fellow man. And that's what is it? And I read this a long time ago. I think it was one of the bloodiest days because you have such an aversion to killing, but with human nature being so scared in that you have to kill, and it was like this weird paradoxical thing. I can't remember. I'd have to reread it. But anyways, I completely agree. Humans don't want to kill, and you have to find ways to kill. However, people watching this would probably think, oh, well, you have people that kill all the time and everything. There's 8 billion people in the world. Like, you take a fraction of that. I mean, 10% of 8 billion is what, 800 million? Like, take so 1% would be what, 80 million? Did I do that math right? So I mean, that's still a very large
Math
percentage
was
of
never my
people.
forte.
So, but so yeah, so killing I think is unnatural. But then if you think about it, the first sin was Cain killing Abel. So even though it's unnatural, it is something that is very reflective of human nature. And so I think we are fallen, but I think there's a bit of a duality. You have our animalistic nature of I want what I want, and I'm going to get what I
We're
want.
gonna
And then
take
you
it.
have
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Was it?
Well, my friend Sebastian is a bit more like on the like far left side. I'm just like, well, that's fine and whatnot, but um, oh, I guess my point was it's like, look, even in like caveman times, there were tribes of people who were running around. And they're like, hey, those guys have that piece of land that we want. Let's kill them.
Yep.
Like, if you've ever seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, there's that sequence with the apes,
Yep.
fighting each other. I'm like, if that's not like the history of humanity in like a moment, like there you go.
Yeah.
And that
Exactly.
might seem very cynical. I don't think that's cynical, but some people might think it is. I don't know.
Well, I don't think it is because we're a fallen being. Like we want to do good. And if you look at like so many stories and if you look at just the history of humanity and like you're saying, like I always say we built the pyramids. And so there's always that debate of if the aliens built it or not. I think to suggest aliens built it takes away from the magnificent power of humanity and our ingenuity. I think we built the pyramids. And for so
No,
we
no, no, no.
think
It's
about it.
again. It kind of. I'm trying not to think about the conversation I had with Sebastian a few days ago, but we were also talking about ancient aliens because we went on some
Oh,
interesting directions in that chat.
well, I can talk about that too, but real quick, I'll finish this thought. We built the pyramids, but we've also created genocide, and so we are at both ends of the spectrum. And if you even look at the Bible, like even God with the Tower of Babel is like, we have to do something. Like these people are just too much. So I really think we are able to reach for the stars, but we're just too busy playing in the dirt, so to speak. But with the ancient alien things, I used a burner account and I got a ton of people mad at this. So I made a statement and I would have to actually do the math on this to see how accurate it is. So if somebody's watching and says it's dumb, whatever, it's just a statement and I haven't really heard anyone else make it. So when people talk about aliens, and it's whether they're out there or not. Now, there's two trains of thoughts. Again, they either exist or they don't exist. Those are the only two options. Now, if they exist, we can get into populations and this and that, but overall, general, it's either yes or no. And so, and if it's yes, why haven't they contacted us and what? But anyways, so you'll hear people go, "Oh, well, space is so infinitely vast that the amount that we've observed is if you took like a cup of water in the ocean and said, "Oh, there's no sharks in here, therefore there's no sharks in the ocean."
Well, yeah.
And that's what I get all the time.
Good point.
However, the counterpoint that I've had is, yeah, but most likely, and again, with it being aliens foreign, it could be things that I like maybe they're not carbon based like us or whatnot. But uh, you're looking at just space, but you can't just look at space and stars. You can only look on planets. And not just planets. It can't be any planet. It has to be a planet that has sustainable life. And so um if you look, you might have a few million planets that could sustain life. And with that, it has to be the right distance away from a star. It has to have the right properties. It has to have the right measurements and of each property. So, you have a few million. So you're like, oh, well, the chances, even if it's just 3 million, that's got to be high chances, right? So then you have to look at not just that. And I'll even play the game. Let's say humans are here due to evolution. The amount of statistical um, it was it's almost statistically impossible for us to be here through evolution, right? But let's say we are here through evolution. I'm not docking it. I'm just saying it's statistically impossible, but we're here. So let's replicate that. You have 3 million planets. Let the evolution therefore would have to happen on one of those planets. What you get, maybe 3 planets, that's a possibility. So again, I'm not here to argue evolution. I'm arguing if we are here due to evolution, you have to look at how
I think
impossible that
evolution
is.
is misunderstood. Honestly, I mean, if you read like the Origin of Species,
Yeah,
I don't think he's. It's not like he literally goes like, "Hey, we came from apes." Now it's been you know,
yeah.
I haven't read the whole thing. I'm just familiar with
So
because pop culture osmosis. But like, he's not saying like Christianity's false or whatnot. All he's saying is that animals and people, they adapt to their environments,
yep, exactly.
which
And
is like which is like not that controversial when you think about it, but it caused such a stir. Now I know it's a little deeper than that. I know there's
yeah,
a lot of it is like him speculating on like, oh, where do we come from, which is where
yeah.
that popular conception of evolution comes from. But like, again, basically all he's saying is that animals and people adapt to their environments generally.
And it's so funny because I get in arguments on both sides of it from left and right. So I'll have people on the right that's like evolution doesn't exist. I'm like, evolution exists. Like, I mean, and I'll pull up like the birds like that he was writing on. I mean, heck, let's take people out of it. Let's just look at cell phones and how they've evolved. And I know that's not organic matter, but again, we literally breed animals for evolutionary purposes. Like, I mean, you're adapting. So essentially, evolution does exist, but it's a theory of evolution they get mad at. And then the other side gets mad at me because of that. And I'm like, well, I don't think we came from apes. And they're like, oh, it's this and that. And I'm like, okay, let's say if we did. These are the statistical impossibilities of us because it's not just us came from apes. It's what we came from a bacterium that was floating in space that fell to Earth that became a fish that crawled out of the ocean that became a crab that became a ape that became a caveman. Like, I mean, I that's oversimplification, but that's essentially it's like
It makes me think of the South Park episode when well, I think it was Mrs. Garrison at the time, but she was kind of going like explaining evolution. You're just like, oh my god.
yeah, and it's like even if we were to accept if that's it, and again, my argument here isn't if and or, it's just if that's it, then you have to at least state the impossibility of the situation, and people would just be like, "Oh no, it just happens." And like, if I were to leave a cheeseburger out, it's not going to evolve in millions of years into a dinosaur. Like, I mean, who knows? Maybe it will. I doubt it. And so, and again, I'm oversimplifying the argument, highly oversimplified. So I know people are going to pick this apart like crazy. But all I'm stating is to at least acknowledge the impossibility of human life being here because it's not just humans, it's everything and the way it's here now. And if we were just a few miles closer or further away from the sun, we wouldn't be able to be alive. So if you put that on an infinite scale, I would assume there's probably maybe 3 planets that would even have to, and then or that would have the capabilities, and then you have to put that. It's just it's something, and people got super mad about because I was arguing against evolution. I was like, I'm actually arguing for evolution in this argument. It's just how impossible that it would happen again, twice.
Yeah, no, I just I I I generally try to stay away from those arguments because it's like, yeah, it's some of it's beyond my pay grade. Talking about like epistemology and whatnot.
Yeah, and a lot of times with those arguments, and I've gotten away from them some, is that no side, I've never met someone that I've had a serious argument with that has come in with good faith. I have a buddy that we can talk to, and we'll argue about anything. Our favorite thing is whenever we're gaming, we'll argue about waffle stomping. and he picks one, and I always have to pick the opposite of what he picks, and then we'll argue about the pros and cons of each method. So we'll just pick anything to argue about, and we enjoy it. But then afterwards, there's like a time where the mask comes off, and we're like, all right, what do you actually believe, and how do we? And we might disagree, we might agree, whatever. But that's only like one person I know that I can do with, and then everyone else. Um, they always use like what is it? I had a buddy, and I told him the alien thing, and I was like, I haven't heard anyone say this, but I think it might be interesting. I might have to look into it. And he was like, well, you're a Christian, so you can't think straight. I'm like,
Well,
huh.
I personally don't believe in ancient aliens. I mean, it's a cool idea, but I don't like. As far as I know, there's no evidence for it, and also,
Yeah.
a lot of the theories based on that is basically like, wow, these brown people totally couldn't have made the pyramids, and you're like, yes, they did. Get out of here with that. You know, and like I'm not trying to like sound like I'm pandering here, but like a lot of those like ancient alien theorists, like a lot of it is steeped in racism. Like, you know, to be
Oh yeah,
perfectly
no,
blunt.
I don't think it's pandering at all. I think it's hilarious because what the Library of Alexandria got burned down, so we
Uh huh.
don't know how many things that we had in there that we could have learned from that we've just lost. Because right now, so a lot of people think that we haven't been to the moon because we no longer have the technology, and it's like no, like a lot of times, like you just keep developing new and new technology, and no one is watching the old, and then you just forget how to do it. And put that for the pyramids, we don't know how they did it.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. We were talking about. I was talking with you know, about like flat earthers and with no with again on a recent episode where I was just like, it's so dumb. Like you could literally just walk out, look up in the in the sky, and like you could see it's a ball. You know, it's just
My favorite thing when I meet someone's a flat earther, I go, "You're a flat earther? The earth is clearly donut shaped." They don't know what to do.
I'm just I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird thing that exists for whatever reason. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, no, we've been down the rabbit hole. But yeah, no, yeah, no, it's just you know, I've read a good amount of texts. I've read like apologetics texts. I've read atheist texts. So I mean, you know, I'm familiar with a lot of the arguments of either side.
And I always appreciate when you can do that. Like I'll meet people that will refuse to read something um, that's against their worldview. And I'm like, why? Like, don't you want to understand it better? Like, I actually just a few
No,
months
no,
ago.
don't get me wrong. There's some of it I don't really like all that much. I mean, I don't really think that stuff like um, the God delusion is particularly that insightful, but I do think it'd be it is an interesting read to understand where the other side is coming from, even if I think it's
Yeah,
rather rudimentary.
I don't know if you saw, I know we followed each other on Goodreads, and I read the Communist Manifesto a couple months ago, and I put a review on it, and I thought it was dumb. And I had a buddy, and he's like, I would never read that. I was like, I just need to know what they think and why. And I read it, and the
Also,
logical
I find the
fallacies in it.
Communist Manifesto is pretty. It's more readable than something like Capital, because Capital is just it is unreadable. I mean, well,
Is it really?
it is readable, but like it's not a fun read, and it's about business. So I mean, I guess that's why. But it's yeah, no, above
Yeah,
my
I was having
pay
to get pour a drink to read it. I was like, this is miserable. So I don't know if I could read Capital then.
At least the Communist Manifesto it's a punchy read. You could read it in like a couple days.
Yeah, and for me, it was funny because it's such a short, it's essentially like a pamphlet. But when I was reading it,
So
I would
that's
have
what
to
it
reread it.
was a pamphlet.
Yeah, and I would reread it and like, or I would read it and then I'd have to reread it because I think some of the grammar is just off, it's right on sentences, but then the logic, and I'm just like, did I miss something here? Like, it starts out and again oversimplifying, but it's like, oh, for all of human history it has been warfare with other humans, so the only way we can stop that is if we're in charge, therefore there will be no more warfare. And I'm like, I could be wrong, but I feel like probably everyone has thought that, that has done this before. And that's kind of how the whole book read for me.
Yeah, it's again, I read like I read like God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens, and it's that's another kind of frustrating book because, well, one, Hitchens was actually a pretty good writer when he put in the effort and wasn't getting drunk off his ass. But again, once you get past the flash of his like linguistic ability, a lot of it is really shallow. Like he says like, "Oh, look at all these wars religion caused," and I just go, "Okay, well, what about all the other ones that weren't started by religions, which is most of them?"
I got into an argument with
Like
someone
the
the
war on like the war on terror was not just because they were Islamists who hated our way of life. you know, it, there's a history there.
what
Anyway,
was it? Someone on Twitter was like, "Oh, every religion's been started by war," and I was like, or not every war has been started by religion." I got it backwards, and I was like, "I doubt that." And they're like, "Yeah, you just don't know." So I literally, and again, I recommend research, but just in the
there's a
argument, I was
couple
like,
wars I can think of that were not started by
"Yeah."
religion, and they're the last couple wars over the last couple years, or the last like 70
Well,
years,
well, they're like, "Oh,
century.
well, what they say?" They're like, "Well, that's actually that was started because religion, like adjacent or something like that." And I'm just like, so it wasn't. And then what do they say? They're like, they're making fun of Christianity. They're like, I could never be a Christian because it's responsible for all wars and bad things. I was like, okay, here, before we continue, can you at least admit the religion has done at least one good thing ever? Because there's Christian charities. Like, can you at least admit it's done one good thing? They said no, because it's never done one good thing. I was like, then you're not a serious person because it's done good things. It has charities.
Hell,
You can
the
disagree
world
with it
we
all you want.
have now, well, aside from the Enlightenment, well, the Enlightenment being the one other really important thing that's created the society we have today. But like, if it wasn't for Judeo-Christian values, we would still be like the Vikings murdering each other.
Yep.
Like, it would literally be like, it would be crazy.
Yeah, and I was like, can you just admit? And they didn't contribute to that. They contributed that to atheism because atheists are the real people with morality, and they're just not dumb enough to fall for believing a man is in the sky. And I'm like, okay, you have no argument.
I generally try not to engage with such people because it's like, it's pointless.
I've stopped. For the longest time I thought if I came in good faith, I could learn a bit, and then maybe it would be reciprocated. There was this one guy a few years ago that I met, and he wanted to know how someone as smart as me could be so dumb as to believe in Christianity, and or not Christianity. I'm sorry, Sky Daddy, which I hate that term,
Sky
but
Daddy.
I'm just like, really, dude. So, speaking of oversimplification, so I was like, okay, how about this? Let me throw you through my logic, and I'll walk you through why I believe it. And he's like, oh, you're going to try to tell me why you believe in Sky Daddy? I was like, I will walk you through it. And he was like, yeah, because you believe in Skydive because you're an idiot. And this was a dude, like, we've had plenty of like respectful conversations. I'm like, dude, let me just explain. I will walk you through the rationale. I'll do the little domino effect. That way you can understand where I'm coming from. And he's like, well, I'm not stupid enough to fall for something like that. I'm like, you know what? The conversation's over. Like,
Yeah, oh, well. Yeah, it's just it's a whole thing. I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
Just
So, I used to love discussions. I just discussions, debates. I was really good in school. I could debate anything. And it's fun for me because when you're in an echo chamber, you you kind of get lazy and sloppy with your beliefs. And it kind of gets to, like I was telling you with my family, like you just don't question it. That's just how it is. So I always like to be challenged because then it helps me refine and understand what I know. But something in recent years has just changed to where even with my friends. I was talking to someone I'm no longer friends with, and we were talking about the abortion debate. And I kind of won't get into the specifics, but I was coming at it very reasonable. I was like, "Oh, why do you believe what you believe? This is what I think," but it's very complicated, especially to implement as a law. Some people would probably say it's not complicated at all. Again, this is a conversation with a friend, and in a public setting. I was trying not to be, anyways. So I said, or actually, no, I didn't. Not what I said. My friend said, "Well, you can't think clearly because you're a Christian." And again, I'm just like, and that's two separate friends that's happened to, and they are no longer friends. And I'm like, I come to you with respect. We disagree. You have your religions or not religions, and I respect your thinking and rationale. But if you open Pandora's box of, well, you can't think clearly because you're a Christian, well, I could say you don't think clearly because you're an atheist. Like it goes both ways. Oh, you can't do that because I believe in science. Yeah, well, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know what you mean though about getting in echo chambers and being you kind of lazy because it's it happens.
Yeah. Actually, it was funny because when I was in the army, my NCO, we're really good buddies now, but I was the only person that would question him, and you should never really question. It's frowned upon to question authority. People say whatever they want. It's frowned upon. Um, and it was never disrespectful, but he would say, "Hey, let's do something," and I would be like, "Why?" And anyone watching this is in the military. I don't quite recommend it. You have to have a good relationship, but it wasn't just like why. It wasn't just being dumb or anything. I would be like, "Hey,
You aren't being
why
like
are
a
we doing?"
jerk, being like, hey,
Yeah, yeah. It would be like, "Hey,
be like, hey, you
why?"
idiot, why aren't we doing this? Like,
Yeah,
no.
people will talk all the time. I think there's an example where the military is like, instead of making a PB&J sandwich, they'll write a manual that you put the peanut butter on the outside and then you put the jelly on the floor, and that's how you make it. And I will say with the military, there's reasons why they do it, but a lot of times here's a joke about the military. There's a new commander that comes in and takes charge, and as he's taking charge, he's talking to the old commander, and before the old commander leaves, he goes, "Hey, you always need to have someone guarding this bench." He's like, "Oh, why? What's the significance of it?" And he's like, "I don't know, but you always have someone guarding the bench." And he's like, "Well, that's weird. I'm not going to use up one of my men just to guard a bench, so I'll go to the previous commander." So he went to the commander before that one. I was like, "Hey, why do we guard the bench?" He's like, "I don't know. It's just what we always do." So he goes to the commander before that one. He's like, "Hey, why on earth are we guarding this bench? It doesn't make any sense." And he just started laughing. He's like, "That was supposed to be for 2 hours while the paint dried." So so if you don't ask questions or anything, then you just start doing dumb things. And it happens some in the military, and just because of customs and courtesies and how everything works. But so anyways, I would always ask my NCO, and he would always do one of two things. He'd always go, "That's a good idea. Let's try it this way." Or he'd go, "Oh, we have to do it this way because X, Y, and Z." And he'd explain it to me, and then I learned. And so I think it's valuable to ask questions and try to get information and do that. But a lot of times we just don't do that.
I you did it is mentioned that you're a veteran on your Twitter page. I was gonna ask, like, did you see combat or would you just like go to like Germany or something, just hang out there?
None of that actually. I really wanted to go see combat. I tried, and for years I couldn't get in.
Well,
I
I
originally
didn't want
wanted
to. I didn't want to go like, "Hey, did you shoot anybody?" Because like apparently that's like a big no. Don't ask a veteran that.
Oh yeah, no. I didn't shoot anyone.
Well, that's
I
good.
was at, so my job was actually public health in the army. So in
Oh
the
well.
military, yeah, like
So
I
you were
just
like a medic.
no, but I'm so glad you said that. So there's a lot of different health fields in the military, and my job was to essentially do public health. So like everything that you saw the public health departments during COVID was essentially my job. However, every single person thought I was a medic because there's that common misconception. And I have my buddy that I was telling you about. he was a medic, and he actually I was one of the only non-medics that did medic related duties at that station, just because I was competent and everything. And I would always tell him, I'm not a medic, but I can do your job for you. When reality, it's much easier for a medic to do my job because it's just. But anyways, so I worked at Leavenworth, which is the giant prison. And there's actually two prisons at Fort Leavenworth. There's the JRCF, which is under 10 years, and then the USDB, which is 10 years to life. And I worked at that one. So if you've heard of the Kill Team, uh, Hassan, who else? I worked with them. Uh, President Trump pardoned Lawrence while I was there. What else? Some big name inmates are there, and I had to work with all of them. And essentially, my job as a public health specialist is to ensure that they're safe. So I have a big issue with I've been seeing in the news lately, like nurses and doctors will go, "Oh, if someone has a different political opinion than them, this is how you kill them or harm them and whatnot." It's like, no, like. Do you, so 85% of the population at the USDB are pedophiles or sexual offenders. And now, I don't know your opinion on pedophiles, but I have some very strong opinions on pedophiles, as I would think a lot of people do.
Well, sure,
And
yeah.
I had to compartmentalize that belief, and instead of going, oh, I'm going to just let them suffer, I just told myself, my job is to make sure they stay healthy so they can live out their sentence. I'm not going to think about what they did. My job is to keep them healthy, so that's what I'm going to do. So, and that would just be, for example, making sure that they're following certain protocols so they don't get unhealthy, for example, or sick. So MRSA would be very common in that type of environment. And an issue we had was their showers were a bit porous, and they also didn't have a slope for the water to drain out. And you can't use enough amount of bleach that would be suitable to get rid of it because they could poison each other with the bleach. So it has to be watered down to a point where it's virtually ineffective. And so my job was to kind of help with that. Or what else? I worked a lot in the Ned window, which is where we gave out pharmaceuticals to the inmates as well. So I kind of did a lot of things with health stuff like that. I vaccinated a bunch of them as well, stuff like that. So, but I'm not a medic, but I gotta tell this for my buddy. I'm not a medic, but I can do their job.
Ha, fair enough.
But there is a distinction. But anyways, I wasn't able to go. I tried for years to go spec ops. I really wanted to be a CCT in the Air Force, which is essentially they're spec ops that fly over, jump in, make a landing strip, and then direct flights. Pretty pretty cool job, I thought. And I'm flat-footed, and the Air Force wouldn't take me. And so I tried for years. I was like, I will go to the Pentagon and run a marathon around it just to show them I'm fine. And they're like, yeah, no, rules are rules. And then 10 years ago, the Army called and they're just like, hey, we can get you a waiver if you want to get in. I was like, yeah, sure. Like, can I go Ranger? They're like, yeah. So I didn't want to be Ranger in comparison to I wanted to be a CCT. That's all I wanted to be, nothing else. I even once I tried out for the Navy and I was like, do y'all have anything cool like this? And they're like, no, but the recruiter's like, you can try out to be a SEAL. I was like, I don't want to be a SEAL. And then you had one recruiter's like, well, you're not good enough to be a SEAL. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. Well, I don't want to be. And he's like, you think you have what it takes? I mean, I probably, but that's just maybe not. I don't know. I don't care. And he was like, oh, well, someone that wants to be a SEAL would know. I'm like, okay, well, I want to be in the Air Force, not here. So, anyways, the Army took me. So this is how it works. People might be able to, or people might be aware of the phrase "be the gray man," which is like blend in. And so
Oh,
when I first got,
is that where that book series comes from?
I
You
don't
ever
know
heard of
about the book
that? The Gray
series.
Man? It was made
Mm-mm.
into a movie.
Oh yeah, they did do the movie. Yep. So I think with the movie they were doing the same thing. It's just about blending in, which is funny because there's like this whole sales thing now where people will buy stuff that's gray man, but it looks tactical, so you don't look gray man. So, anyways, being the gray man is being able to blend in with your surroundings. I actually, it's funny, I travel for work, and so I like to blend in. So, besides my haircut, which probably gives me away, I usually wear a hat, but I wear things that make me not look tactical. I mean, it's not like I'm working for the military, but there's a lot of veterans that will wear like grunt style, and you can pick them out in a crowd easily, and I don't like that. But anyways, so be the gray man, you just want to blend in. So for example, when I got to bending, um, I was one of the fastest, maybe the fastest or top three, something like that. I can't quite remember. And so what I would do is if you are the most fit or the most smart or whatever, and the drill sergeants know that, then they're going to put you in charge. I didn't want to be in charge, so I would actually like slow down a bit and like count and be like, all right, there's 30 people here. I'm going to let about 12 people in front of me and then just blend into the middle. I did that for a
I'm the
while,
same
and
way. I
then
don't want to be in a leadership role. That would be. I don't want that responsibility.
exactly. And so I just like blended in, and then we had the commander come out, and he was like, "Hey, if you have the highest PT score, then we'll promote you to specialist." And I think I came in as an E3, so that's E4. And at the time, I was like, I didn't realize you had to wait longer. It's like, oh, I get a higher paycheck just by doing a few extra push-ups. I can do that. So I ended up running, and that's how I knew I was faster and stronger than everyone. This isn't like a bragging thing.
Well,
It's actually really funny. So then the drill sergeants. So you have a bunch of people who are struggling with obesity that join. So they feed you at basic, but they don't feed you a lot. And it's also doesn't help people that are primarily muscle. So I lost, I think, like 10 or 20 pounds. And at the time, I was the most fit I'd ever been before I joined. And so when I got there, um, I was complaining because I couldn't actually lift. I just had to do push-ups, sit-ups, and run, which is very army, right? So the drill sergeants were like, "Hey, if any one of you can get a PT score higher than mine, you can work out with us. Heck, we'll even let you buy protein shakes." And I was like, "Holy crap! You're telling me I can get my gains back?" So like you're telling me I get a promotion, I get my gains. They're probably going to not give me as much crap. I am all in for this. So sure enough, I scored higher than our drill sergeant did, and it was so funny. They called me up and like, "Hey Miller, I hate to do this, but we didn't think anybody was going to do that, and you're actually not allowed to work out with us." And I'm like, "Are you freaking serious? Like I did all this work. You know who I am now. You're putting me in leadership roles, and I can't even do this. Like, what about all the other people?" And so,
they were just like, sorry, man. Like,
yeah, and I'm just like, so it was funny though because I'd been training for like 2 years to go spec
don't you
ops. So
love that
then
when someone goes like, yeah, go on ahead and do that, not expecting you would actually go do it. You know, you're just like, oh man.
yeah, so then after that I get to my unit and I'm like, I'm going ranger, semi ranger, and they're like, we don't send enlisted, and I'm like, well, what do I have to do to become an officer? Like just send me. So then after that, and this just shows how dumb I am. Just let everyone know, PhD doesn't make you smart. It's usually the people dumb enough to think schooling will make them smart.
Well,
So I'm an idiot. But anyways, with that, there's plenty of PhDs that are intelligent. There's duality on both sides. Anyways, so I got to my duty station and they're like, "Hey, if you want to go ranger, you have to get air assault, and to get air assault, you have to win a board." I'm like, "Cool, I'll win a board." So I spent like the first year at my duty station, I became a board baby, which is essentially a board is an interview essentially that is high stress, and you do a competition, and it's just like the competition can be as little as a board and who does it the best, and it's literally just an interview wearing your best outfit, and it might be a week long where you're doing land nav, you're doing marksmanship, you're doing tests, you're doing uh, medical lanes, like all this stuff. So it could be either or, right? And I spent a whole year, and I even went to Tradoc to compete. And I was like, "Cool, I want to go to Air Assault now." And like, "Well, you got one more." I'm like, "No, I want to go now." And they just like kept hangling a carrot in front of me. So then I went to Air Assault, and I went to EFMB, which is the Expert Field Medical Badge, and I got both. And I was just a specialist. I'm like, Great. Now can I go Ranger? They're like, nope, we don't send enlisted. I'm like, are you serious? I was like, I have spent a year developing my reputation here. You know I can go. Send me. And then I went to some classes and they're like, oh yeah, you can go. You don't need your leadership's pa passing or what is it? Blessing. That's what I'm thinking of. So then I tried that, and I cannot remember why, but I could not go. Like I spent so much time trying to go Spec Ops, trying to go see action. They would not let me go. And then at Leavenworth, I didn't get deployed. They had like this weird rotation thing, so I didn't see anything like that. I never went overseas while I was in or anything like that. And then COVID hit, and when COVID hit, that was when I was getting ready to ETS. And I'd become a little disillusioned with the military at that time, so I was like, I might get out. But I really loved it, even to this day. As much as I have some not so fond memories, I do miss it, and it was something I was really good at. So I was thinking about staying in, and then there turned out that there was a conspiracy to get me out. And kid you not, and so that mixed with COVID,
What
I got out.
were
So
they
okay,
like? Were they just like, this guy? He's too good. We gotta get him. He's making us look bad. We gotta
so
get him out of here.
I honestly don't know. I made a very, very good name for myself at my duty station. Pretty much everyone knew who I was there. Um, I had at this might be common at duty stations like Bragg, but it's not common at Leavenworth. But I was a specialist that had two tabs on me, which that's just not common in that type of environment. So, and then I made sergeant, so I became a leadership role. I knocked out my bachelor's while doing all of that in 2 years, and I was doing my master's. So like I was pretty well known, right? And again, this isn't tooting my own horn or anything. This is just some context behind it. So I get a new NCO, and he comes in, and he just like hates me. And I think he talked to an NCO that didn't really get along with me prior. But for example, he was like, "Hey, you need to write a list of your awards and a Word document, so it's easier to write awards and whatnot." And I was like, "Oh, I've been doing that for years." He's like, "No, you haven't." And so I pulled up the document. I was like, "Hey, will you look?" And he just refused to look. He just turned around, and I was like, "Hey, if you just turn your head 90 degrees to the right, you'll see like I've already done it." He's like, "No, you haven't." I'm like, what is going on? So then, like a few weeks later, I had to get an LMTV, and so with military vehicles, they don't have a key to the vehicle. You can just jump in and start it. So what they do is they have a little key and a padlock on the outside. But depending on the size and shape, you can manipulate it and you can just open it. You're not supposed to, well, you're not supposed to at all, but you're also not supposed to because it can actually warp the shaping of the lock and everything. And so, anyways, there's an emergency. They needed me to get some potable water for an event, and someone had taken the key home to them. I couldn't get in contact with them. I was like, screw it, I'll just open it myself. And I got in, opened it, and I completed the mission, right? So like the next, not day, I think this is like a Saturday, but the following week on Monday we were doing Liverpool, and he's like, how'd you get in and do this? And I was like, oh yeah, sorry, they have the key, couldn't find it, so I just did it. And he's like, no, like that's impossible. I'm like, no, it's like I know you're not supposed to, but it's not impossible. So he's like, yeah, it is. You couldn't have done it. You must be lying. So in front of the guy, I like manipulated the lock, opened it in front of him, and got in. And he was like, no, that's impossible. You can't be inside of it right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Now, people watching this are probably going to think, oh, he was messing with you. Kid you not, he was not messing with me. He was very literal. Like it was like he was living in a different reality. And so he was like, you must have the key on you messing with me. And I was like, no, like so. Anyways, he he sent me to with work with the medics, and I worked in the med window, which was fine. And then I was a sergeant, and I was still living in the lower enlisted housing, mainly because I knew that I would be leaving soon. I didn't want to have to move somewhere on base to move again. I was like, I don't care. So my wife had gotten attacked by a pit bull in the lower enlisted housing, and they didn't care. They were just like, actually, she got attacked multiple times, and they just would not care. They're like, well, maybe you shouldn't be messing with dogs. And she's like, I was on a walk. Like,
Jeez.
so then, we had a friend in NCO housing, and we went there, and we spent a lot of time there, just out of the lower enlisted. And she got attacked by another pit bull, and the MPs came like, "Oh my gosh, ma'am, I am so sorry. What can we do for you?" And I said, "This is unethical. You are choosing based on rank who to serve. That's not how it's supposed to work." So I went on Facebook, and again, you're not supposed to like post controversial things on Facebook, but I didn't think this was me talking crap about the army or anything. I said, "Look, there's an unethical situation going on here. They are not serving the lower enlisted. My rank hasn't changed, but because I still live here, they thought we were privates when we're sergeant. But since we're sergeants, they're like, oh, well, we'll actually help now. That's not ethical." And so apparently that gave me some backlash, and my top didn't like that. But this guy, so anyways, when it came time, this guy was telling th- this guy and my first sergeant were telling a new commander that came in that had not had a chance to meet me, "Hey, Dakota or Miller is bad news. Do not let him reenlist." And so for months, I had been trying to reenlist, and like S1 was getting mad because I hadn't put in my ETS packet and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh no, I'm going to reenlist." And so finally, this new commander, and I had a really good relationship with the past previous commanders, but this new commander was like, "Hey, Miller, come to my office," and he asked about it, and he's like, "Tell me about this. I am being told by your NCO and my first sergeant that you're a horrible soldier and I should not let you stay in. Why?" Just so you know, I don't have like any Article 15s. I don't have any disciplinary issues. My work ethic is amazing. I'm telling you, like, this is not me going, they just didn't get me. It was a conspiracy. Like, I had an excellent reputation. So he's like, "Yeah, uh, can you tell me why they would tell me something like that?" And I was backside because my first sergeant, who now with hindsight was spineless, every time he saw me, he was like, "Oh, I can't wait for you to reenlist. We could really use more soldiers like you. If we had 20 soldiers like you, that's all I'd need." Right? He's telling me that to my face, and then I find out from the commander he's doing this. So after my commander's like, "Oh yeah, I'd love for you to reenlist. We need more soldiers like you." I went to retention, and I said, "I'm getting out. I'm getting out. Writings on the wall with COVID. I know what they're going to do. They're going to force the vaccine." I was lying to myself, and there's a conspiracy. If I stay here, I will have a target on my back. Also, to mix it with that, so I wanted to, I mentioned it earlier, I wanted to commission as an officer because enlisted life just sucked. So I got my bachelor's. That's kind of why I did it so fast. After I got my bachelor's, I went to commission, and the Army said, "Oh, yeah, we don't accept bachelor's. We only accept master's." And I was like, The regulation says bachelor's." Like, "Yeah, but get a master's."
Is
Screw it. So I got,
that
I'm like,
really what they
"What?"
said?
Yeah, they're like, "Yeah, we know the regulation says that, but you just wouldn't be competitive." It's like, I don't care. Like, with my record, I guarantee I'd be competitive. That we're not gonna do that. So I get my well, I'm getting my master's. I graduated in 2021. So I was even reaching out before all of this because I got out in 2021, got my master's in 2021. So I'm reaching out to recruiters. I'm like, "I will have my master's in a few months. Will you take me on?" And they're like, "Nah, you need a PhD." I'm like, "Are you what?" I was like, "The regulation says a bachelor's." Like, "Yeah, you need a PhD." So then, um, I'm like, "This is ridiculous." So I
So
couldn't
what?
commission.
When you get the PhD, they're like, "Yeah, we just don't want you. Just go away."
So, well, it's actually funny. I have another story for that. So I ended up getting out, and while I was out, I had some issues, or not issues. While I was out, I wanted to get back in, and so I was like, "You know what? I'm going to try for the Air Force because that's where I've wanted to go." So while I'd been out for a few years, I called about the PhD, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't know if that qualifies you either." I'm like, "This is insane!" Like, so, and just so you know, there's a regulation for everything. I looked, and it's like bachelor's in environmental science is the number one degree you need, and then if you want master's, it has to be a public health. That's the number one degree, and then doctorate health science. So all my degrees have been based on getting commissioned, but so I tried, and then the Air Force was like, "Oh yeah, we'll take you now." I'm like, "Great." And I was like, "I do have a few issues," and they're like, "Oh, we can get you waivers for that." So I go to MEPS, and as I'm at MEPS, he's like, "Oh yeah, you have like a ton of paperwork. We're going to be here for hours." I'm like, "Oh yeah, like I have what some foot issues. That's fine." And he was like, "Oh, so you have personality disorder?" I'm like, "What? Like, what are you even talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, you have PTSD, personality disorder. You have a history of committing crimes." Like this is just a laundry list of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. What is this? So he like pulled it around. Uh, when COVID happened, I was going through some issues, and I say issues. Um, Again, not to get too political, but everything's political now. Working in public health, and getting my master's at the same time, everything that I knew from public health of years of doing it was thrown out the window with COVID. Um, so, like for example, I had a public health class, and I had to research something that's in the news and compare it with data and see. And at the time, there was a news article on CNN that was like Trump tries to kill millions with hydrochloroquine. So I was like, okay, well, or whatever. So I did some research, and the research was like in 2012, hydroxychloroquine worked for the coronavirus. Obviously, it wasn't COVID-19, but and so it's like, okay, so it worked for this. So it's only logical at this early. This is like March of 2020. It's only logical at this point that it might work for this. We don't know. And he's not a scientist. He's just repeating what someone else told him. Like it's, and my teacher called me like some MAGA first Trumper that doesn't know. And I'm just like, it's this is a science. Like I have okay, whatever. So then during that, we had a Facebook public health group for people in the army, and they were talking about the mortality rates, and I was like, hey, I'm doing the math myself, can someone double check my math and see if it's wrong, because the mortality rate that I'm getting is not what's on the news, and I need to know where I'm messing up. And again, this isn't like a political thing. I have to do my job. I need to know this. And they refuse to look at the math. They're like, "Oh, you're just trying to push an agenda." I'm like, "I am trying to calculate this, and I'm not getting the same number. I need to know where I'm messing up." And they're like, "You're just pushing an agenda." And then they like push me out of the group or banned me or whatnot. So, um, all this was going on, and so when I got out, you had all or what were we talking about? Oh yeah. So when all this was going on, I felt like I was having a mental break from reality. And so my wife was like, maybe you should go to therapy. And I was like, I feel like I'm going crazy. Like everything I say, people are saying that I'm some conspiracy theorist, but it's a science that I have dedicated years to actually doing in school and professionally. I don't know how to say this without sounding crazy, but and I wasn't someone that was like going down conspiracies. I was just looking at the math. So I went to this therapist, and I was just like explaining it to them. And she said that I had severe PTSD. And
From
what else?
what?
Oh yeah. So she asked like standard questions like, "Oh, do you have any firearms in the house?" I was like, "Yeah, I have one next to my bed." And she's like, "Is it loaded?" I was like, "Yeah, like in case an intruder comes in." And I was like, "It's in a safe. It's in the nightstand, but like, yeah, like it's a last case." So because of that, I must therefore have PTSD. And I was like, "It's a pretty common thing for Americans to have a gun in their nightstand." And they're like, "Nope, you have PTSD." And then and then on the MEPS thing for the personality disorder and stuff like that. So the notes are attached to like a sentence, but the personality disorder was just attached to empty space. So I'm like, how can you
So like
what here?
you
And
don't
even
like wake up with nightmares or anything like that.
well, I had 2 episodes of sleep paralysis, but at the time I was working a very erratic shift, and I've never had them before or since. And I've talked to multiple psychiatrists, and they're all like, no, like you were stressed that happens in a very stressful environment, but you don't have PTSD. So anyways, like that in the history of crime, it was like all too like empty portions of my medical records in Genesis. And so I was talking to the MEPS guy. I was like, "There's nothing here." Like, and he was confused how it was on my record. I was like, "Could it be a mistake? Are they trying to sabotage me? Like, what is going on? There's no evidence of this." He's like, "But it's here, so I can't take it off your record." And I'm like, are you telling me I can finally get into the Air Force and I can't because someone either made a mistake or is actively trying to sabotage me? And he's like, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. So you might be talking to a crazy person. I don't know, but it's in my medical record.
Fair enough. You know,
So
I did want to ask you a little bit about your book. You've written some stuff as well.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I was quite interested in your oh, hold on. Let me find what it's called here.
yeah.
Or you could tell me to just put me out of my misery here.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just being polite. So my book is called The Curses We Keep.
Mm. Yes, it looked quite interesting. I like the cover art. I just found it on your. Here you go. For anyone who
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't
thank you.
know what it looks like, there you go. I like the cover art here. It's very looks like one of those like old like stone or not stone, like one of those old like encarvements. Is that
Yep.
what you call it? I don't know.
So, well, I was going for a very classic theme. I wanted it to feel old, and I wanted it to. I want to go ahead and try to explain this the best I can. I do not think my book is a classic. Um, I tried to write it in a way that felt classical. So, whenever say that, people go, "Oh yeah, we're all authors want their books to be classics." That's not what I'm saying. Obviously, I would love for that. I'm stating that the type of literature that influenced this text is Wuthering Heights, Edgar Allan Poe, Washington Irving,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and so it should feel like that. And a lot of people who read it definitely feel get that sensation. And so I um I essentially did what Robert Eggers did with The Witch. Is this
Mm.
book is not meant for people in 2026. This book is meant for people in 1750, 1800, 1850.
Mm.
This is meant for hundreds of years ago. Obviously, the writing is not going to be fully encompassing that. It's actually funny. My book was twice as long, and I've had multiple people and my editors like, you can't write a book this long to be worded like this. You need to shorten it up. And I was like, oh, it's supposed to be like this. They're like, no one's going to read it. It's too long. You either need it shortened or you need it to be a bit more modern, but you can't do both. So I just shortened it. So it's a very dense book. It's about 30,000 words. So it's a novella, but it's meant to feel like I plucked a classic from 200 years ago and we have it available to us today. Again, that's not saying that my book is a classic. It's just it's a homage to those classical works that I am a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
fan
yeah.
of.
I understand what you're saying. I guess I'm curious. Like, what is it about? Or like, what's like the pitch for the story for anyone who might not know?
So the elevator pitch for the story is a family escapes the Salem witch trials, moves to Charleston to thus be haunted by a witch.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah, so it actually is stemmed from I went to Salem and
Kind of
I
sounds
was
like The
looking
Witch from Robert Eggers a little bit, but you know what?
it well it's the witch actually was a major influence for this book, but it's not really has anything in common with the movie
No,
besides
I know. It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
that's funny. Um,
But yeah, so I got the idea for the book at the end of watching The Witch and going to Salem. And the book is as a commentary on what makes us a witch, right? Like, so if whoever doesn't know the history of the Salem witch trials, um, they the 19 people that were hung, none of them were witches. Were actually the only good people that were in Salem. And when I say good, they were good people that were accused of being witches. And you either admit that you were a witch and you get to live, or you stand by who you are and you die because they were like, oh yeah, like whatever. And those were the 19 people that did it. And if you go to Salem, you can see on their tombstones or the headstones their last words. And one person's last words that really haunted me was, I am not a w. And it just stops at WH or WI or whatever. But yeah, it just stops because they hung her mid sentence.
mm.
And she was trying to. And so this book is about grief. It's about fatalism. It's a meta commentary. I actually had a different title for it, and everyone hated it, so I changed it to this.
What was the
But
other title?
it was called The Classic Witch because it's just a
Oh,
classic witch story, and there's a
yeah,
few things in
I
there.
see how that does kind of sound a little more generic. I think the
Yeah,
curses we keep has a bit more like oomph to it.
exactly. So I you take the New England folklore and you put it in a Southern Gothic style, and it's very heavily Southern Gothic. And I just explore some themes of witchcraft, and I don't do it in a way that I think other people do it, but I do it in a way that will really stick with you and haunt you. I had someone read it on Twitter and they wanted to fight me after the ending because I'm exploring religious dogma in this story, and I wanted to write a story where all the characters are smart, but they have a different perspective on something. So all the characters, it's not
Mm-hmm.
like, in a
Because
lot of
like
horror
if you
stories.
read about the Puritans, like they weren't stupid people. Like if you read like stuff
Yeah,
I mean, they do get a bit of a bad rep because of the Salem witch trials, but they weren't stupid people.
exactly. And so like with this, every character is very intelligent and every character has just a different perspective on something. Some are good, some are bad, but I even at one point they end up burning the witch at the stake. And it's not even accusatory. There's some suspicions, but they don't do anything. They don't burn the witch until they see her as a witch. And they're like, oh, well, if she's here and that's her witch spirit, then obviously she's a witch. Let's burn her. Which, I mean, makes perfect sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, we're going to burn her. So I try to make it to where all the characters are smart, but they just don't have all the details. Um, so I'm trying to think of how much I can say without giving anything away. But essentially, this family, the family is the Yorks, Ernest York, Iris York, and their daughter, Cassandra York. And they go to Charleston. Ernest is a sailor, and they moved to Charleston because of the Charleston port.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so he's just going to work out there. And as soon as they get there, um, a a witch starts chasing them. Let's see. There's a witch, then there's ghostly specters watching them, and then there's all kind of just things going on. And something interesting that I found is I played with some folklore.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really a witch? So I've been calling it a witch and whatnot. But so for example, the natives, they're like, it's not a witch, it's a wendigo. And
Hmm.
then
Ooh.
and it, and again, it's just different perspectives because they don't have the witch folklore,
So
but they
what
have
does
the Wendigo
the family
folklore.
go like? Ha! Dumb natives, go away.
Well, they use some words that I probably can't say on here towards
Yeah,
the
no, I was
natives.
about to say there's some other words I probably I could use, but I'm not going to because
But
I could probably get deplatformed for saying that.
exactly, so they use some choice words, and they don't like the natives, and it's actually funny. And I wanted to do this, but the descendant I was talking about earlier. I was like, hey, if there's any like language here. So the natives don't speak English except for one. It's the chief's daughter. Maybe a bit cliche, but and
Yeah.
at one point at one point, they're like, hey, you can stay here. And the Yorks are like, yeah, we don't trust natives. And she's like, it's storming, stay here, you can leave in the morning. They end up staying. And the chief's just acting weird. What I wanted to do to honor that tribe is I wanted to have the actual words the chief is saying and the daughter's translating, and the chief essentially going, "Yeah, they're not staying here," and the daughter going, "See, he wants you to stay here." But
You're making me really interested in reading your book because funnily enough, I'm actually quite fascinated by that period of time. Puritanism. I've always been really like the weird costumes they wore, the beliefs they had. All that fun stuff. And also just again, just how much they. I mean, again, Puritans get a bad rep because of the Salem witch trials, but like if you think about like America today, a lot of those principles we have in America really started with the Puritans, at least
yeah,
initially.
that and you still have Salem witch trials now. I mean, look at the
I'm.
McCarthy era.
Mm-hmm.
Look at now, you have politics where people are just as accusatory. It's something like we had contributed to the witch trials, but it's happened uh, for
Oh, I'm not
hundreds of
saying it's a
years.
unique event. I'm just saying Puritans get a bad rep because of that
Yeah, yeah,
specific event.
exactly.
When it's like, well, yes, but they're not all bad. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of fun stuff you can play with there.
Yeah, and with it, I provide a bit of nuance. So, for example, so my family is Puritans, but they're not superstitious because the father is a sailor. So I mentioned how he's heard tales of sirens while on the ocean, and so he doesn't believe in that. So he's not going to believe in a witch or a ghost. Like especially after coming surviving Salem, he's like, yeah, no, that's just crazy people being crazy. And then he starts being haunted by a witch, and he's like, I'm not crazy, but something here is happening, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what.
Mm-hmm.
And and so and then there's some twists and turns I take. I use some historical things and kind of implement them into my story. Uh, I'm trying to think. I will say the story is a slow burn, but it's short. So it's really funny getting reviews. People either love it or hate it, and there's no in between. The people that hate it say it was way too slow of a story. And the people who love it were like, oh, it was too fast of a story, but I was able to hang on. And it's just because I'm trying to get, and some authors are like, oh, you just use too much purple prose. It's a flaw new authors have. I was like, no, I wrote it specifically for this to feel like it was written
It
by
was
like Edgar Allan
deliberate.
Poe.
It was a deliberate like artistic choice, if you want to call it that.
Yes, and some of it, like some people said, it gets maybe it borders on repetitiveness and whatnot. And I'm like, I'm trying to make it sound as close to a classical author like Poe or Irving as I can, or Bronte.
I will ask: are there any like thighs and thees in your story, or did you just go like, no, I'm doing away with that?
I didn't do that. I wrote it. I wrote.
It's called "Paid You Well, Good Man Miller."
I didn't. I didn't do that. But the conversations are very short and curt. The
Oh, okay.
way I try to write it is, and again, I'm new, so maybe this isn't the right way to do it. I did. I actually wrote this simultaneously while doing my dissertation, so I wouldn't recommend taking any of my advice on writing. But the way I wrote it was to kind of almost someone's thinking, but you don't know what they're thinking about. So you just kind of see their reaction. It may feel strange, um, but why are they reacting that way? So some people that have issues with my book, I don't tell you everything. I don't hold your hand. I purposely don't tell you things and have the answers almost just right off the page. So here's something a big metaphor that I use that I didn't write about, and I'm happy to talk about it. Um, I describe the air a lot, and some readers catch this and some don't. If you've ever been to Charleston, it's extremely humid there,
I
and I can
imagine
only
it's in the
imagine
deep
how it
south.
would. Yeah, exactly, and I can only imagine how it would feel from someone from New England. So a lot of the time, especially in the beginning, they're like, the air here is just different, which is literal and metaphorical. It's literal in the fact that the air is humid; it's different. They probably wouldn't be used to it, but it's metaphorical because the events of the story can only happen here. Think of Pet Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
The events of Pet Cemetery can only happen in that geographical location because of what have you. I don't get into the whys, hows, and whatnot, but there is something different here. And instead of me telling you, oh, yeah, there's a supernatural element here, there just happens to be some hauntings and how did it happen? And I use the metaphor of the air is different. So some people catch it. I put Easter eggs like that, scattered it to kind of let you use your imagination. Some people hate it. It was a stylistic choice of I'm trying to just put the answers right out of your grasp and let you come to the conclusion. And so far, a lot of people have gotten it. A lot of people are like, I see what you did here. Um, so I try to do things like that, but it's not written. It's not written modern, and it's not written in thys and thous.
No,
But
yeah.
it should read similar. If you were to read Wuthering Heights, it should read similar to that, and that's the comparison I get the most.
I haven't read Wuthering Heights,
Okay.
but I know what it is.
Okay. It has the same feel and atmosphere, and it's extremely atmospheric. So the atmosphere and the location is essentially a character itself. Some people, again, they didn't like that because they're like, "Oh, just get to the action." I'm like, I this needs to when you're reading it, it needs to feel like a Robert Eggers film, like The Witch. It needs to. I'm putting you into the atmosphere. It should feel suffocating to read, and the same like a good example I like to use is in Moby Dick.
Mm.
You have all the action in Moby Dick, and then he spends like
Like
a
20
bunch of
pages
chapters.
of just like here's all this stuff about whaling.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't care. But then afterwards, you're like, oh, I feel like a whaler now. So I get the stylistic choice to do that. So I try to do the same of you should feel as suffocating as the characters feel in the woods and while they're going. So um, that's how I did it. If I did it right, if I did it wrong, I don't know. But essentially, I wanted a classical book about a witch, just like you have Dracula, just like you have Frankenstein. I wanted that, and I don't have that. Had Great God Pan, the Raven, any of that. So what I did was I tried to write it in a way of we don't have any more classics. I mean, we have modern classics, but we don't have the classics that we all know and love.
Hmm.
So I did my best to reach back in time, pull one out and go, this is my best attempt of trying to make one more classical book that we can just all enjoy and appreciate how we would with all these other stories. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've read the Robert McCammon book, Speaks to Nightbird. You might like that. It's about a similar period in time. It's part of a series, but like you could read Speaks to Nightbird on its own if you
so
really wanted to.
writing that down.
Um,
Thank you.
but what's funny about that book? It's also about a witch. Well, witch. Um, and the main character is the clerk of a barrister, of a lawyer, and they go into this town to figure out what's going on. And like early on in the book, they're like, yeah, there was that incident in Salem, we don't want to do that again because that was really messy. And so yeah.
Yeah. No, and I get it, and I'm definitely gonna check it out.
Yeah, no, it's a really good book. I really enjoyed it when I read it. It was like 2024. I read it during Halloween, so
I
it's a good
with
fall read.
that. So I'm releasing this on March 2nd, but I am currently working with a narrator and an artist, and I'm trying to release a special edition with the narrated version uh, this October, just in time for Halloween. So the special edition, I'm trying to have a picture that's by the same artist that did the cover in each chapter, kind of going through the story. Mainly because I'm sure I'm friends with Marines that can't read it, so you gotta make a picture book. Um, but no, I'm trying to do a picture each one, and then I have a proof of concept that here I can show you. So this is just a proof of concept that I had made a while back. So
Oh,
that was the original picture that
wait,
I
did you draw that?
used. No, I found this online, but I can't use it due to copyright reasons. So I sent this
Obviously,
to
yeah.
the artist and I was like, hey, want something? And then here's the back. And the
Oh,
picture that the artist used is very similar to this. But I'm actually, to anyone who pre orders, if you message me and I can see it on my end because I can see it, message me and I'm sending a picture of the first chapter to anyone who pre orders as just a gift. Just trying to help anyone that helps me. But here, anyways, what I'm doing is, and let me make sure I don't open it too far. That's what I want the inside to look like on the special edition.
oh, very nice.
So I thought black pages, a picture in each chapter. I thought that would look really nice, and it would just be a nice little author's edition. And I'm debating if I want to change the wording in that edition to be more of what I originally wanted. Because right now I have it, like I said, it's only 30,000 words, but it's a dense 30,000 words. And as much as I love it and other people love it, I wanted something a bit more lyrical, but it's hard to make it lyrical. And I don't know, maybe I'm just not good enough for it. So, but yeah, my book comes out March 2nd, and then I am trying to have a special edition out for those super fans later this year.
Yeah, so we still got a month to go, or well, almost a month to go.
Yeah.
It will be a month on the second.
Yeah. So, and then also, I don't know if I told you this. Another author that I collaborated with, she just announced last night that she has submitted her manuscript for publication, and uh, 7 out of her 30 chapters happen to be my work. And so she's releasing it. So not only is my book coming out, but her book is coming out that I helped collaborate with.
Oh, very nice. So you're busy.
Trying to be, and then I'm busy with work, but it's funny. So this book was supposed to be a standalone. I did have loose ends that I didn't wrap up. Some people may read it and go, "Oh, this is sloppy." I purposely left it out there just to kind of to with the horror aspect. I didn't want you to know everything.
Mm,
Um, but I've had some readers that are like, I need to know what happens after this. And I thought about adding the plot points into this story, but the themes don't match with this story.
mm,
This story is about grief. It's about the choices we make and how it turns us into who we are. Kind of the path to hell is paved with good intentions.
mm,
And the sequel to this, the themes are hate, revenge, retribution. Um, and so you can see how those might clash. You could write them together in a way, but it didn't work with the stories I was being told. So what I want to do is after I release this, and once I have some free time to start working on the sequel, I don't imagine I'll have more after the sequel that will tie up every loose end that I left in this book. So you can enjoy this as a standalone, or if you want to see what happens afterwards, then you can enjoy that. But this is the book that I have as of now.
I see. No. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
My mom just was like, "Hey, is your phone ringing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I could hear that. I don't think that's mine." But anyway, um, yeah, that sounds interesting, man. That's real. It's particularly interesting because I'm also working on something that is Puritan adjacent. So it's kind of funny that we've we've gotten this together.
Yeah, it's such an interesting time
Though it's
in human history.
a bit more of like a fantasy. It's a secondary world though, so it's not like our world.
I will say this book became very close into snowballing into a fantasy, and I had to set some universal rules to make sure that it did not do that because at first it was about a witch and then it might be a wendigo and then there's a ghost and then maybe a vampire and I was like you have all these monsters in it like holy crap and then it's kind of like watching like season 10 of Supernatural. It's like okay, it's not scary anymore, you're fighting monsters. And so I had to cut that back and then I had to go, all right, how many monsters are there? What is the actual monster? And what do people believe? So that's why some people might think it's a vampire, some people might think it's a wendigo, some people might think it's a witch, some people might think it's a ghost. But there's an in universe explanation that I explain, and it makes it very grounded. So it might feel like it's super spooky, especially for Halloween time, but it's a very grounded story that has some supernatural elements because it is horror and it is supernatural, but I wouldn't say it's much more than anything that would take you out of the story thinking that you're living with all of these monsters, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want to turn it into like Vampire Hunter D.
Exactly. I want it to be a very grounded story. But even like in The Witch with Robert Eggers, if you think about that, it's a very extreme grounded story, but there is supernatural elements, but it doesn't take you out of the story. This is
Mm-hmm.
what would probably happen if there's a witch. So I try to apply the same concept to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Look, I think you would really like Speaks the Nightbird if you ever get
Yeah,
around to reading it.
I wrote it down. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, it's I mean, there's not as many Puritans, which is sad, but like there is a guy, I think his name's Exodus Jerusalem, if I remember correctly. He's a character, we'll say. um but yeah, it's more about like that colonial period, which also really fascinates me because it's like
Mhm.
that transitory part of, I guess, American history, if you want to call it that. That's not really talked about so much.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, head's all scratchy.
no, it's all good.
But yeah, no, it's yeah, that's interesting. Um, that you're working on that. So, like, you would say it's like a horror story.
Very much so. Southern Gothic horror is the genre technically, or subgenre.
I see. I see.
So it's funny too because so it takes place in Charleston. So I described Spanish moss, and one of the critiques I got is like, "Well, I don't know what Spanish moss is. Just use regular moss." And I'm like, "Spanish moss is specific to Charleston." They're like, "Well, only people in Charleston can enjoy the story." And I'm like, "I disagree. Like, if you don't know what Spanish moss is, look it up. But it's very prevalent in Charleston. It's kind of a thing. So I'm writing it." Another critique I got was like I didn't name a tree, like the tree that's in the cover. I didn't name it, and I point up. I have I have a picture of the cover in front of me, but at the tree, somebody's like, "Why didn't you name the tree?" I was like, "Well, that's probably more fantasy, not horror. Like this is it's a very very dark book." Here, I will actually let's see. I just got a review I think yesterday
Mm,
from someone and their review was let me see if I can go to Goodreads. Um, it's a very, very dark book. Like not just an atmosphere, but like the ending is dark. It does not let up. It's a very bleak story.
mm,
But
mm-hmm.
this is a classic gothic tale of consequences. It's psychological, dark in imagery, and centered on family. To say much more about the curses we keep would be a spoiler. I enjoyed this novella for its supernatural suspense and the heartbreaking. Well, you'll have to read it. Um, And then another review. I was fortunate to have read this horrifyingly wonderful tale before it was released upon the public. After being drawn in by the wordplay and setting, I was rewarded with a wickedly intense build up to a conclusion which delivers. The style and story are each unique, making this a book I plan to read again. And there is a lot of value in rereading it. The amount of times I had to reread it before I published it, I would find just little Easter eggs I had left previously that I forgot about. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Um, and then I actually, with the sequel, there's Easter eggs that I planted before I even thought about writing a sequel. It's just weird how the world develops. That I'm like, oh, this is great. So, for example, this is in like the second chapter, so it's not really spoiling anything. But they find like um, a footprint, so to speak, and a character's like, this doesn't look like it's made by man nor beast. I don't know what this is. And so it's just like, well, it has to be one of those, right? Like, how did this get here? So it's just little things like that that I put in. And some of them, so someone was saying how some were red herrings, and then they finished the book, and none of them are actually red herrings. Like the way they're written, they may feel like that, but they're all answered in a certain way. It's about perspective. So again, we have a certain perspective because we're following a family. Each chapter kind of follows some different characters around, and you kind of learn about perspective, and you're putting the story together. I've what was it? People have said that the twists are both unpredictable, but exactly what they expected or wanted. Like they would go, "Oh, it'd be interesting if he did this. Holy crap, he did it!" If that makes sense.
Mm.
Um, so you're slowly seeing it, but I tried my best to make it feel gothic and old. So some people may not get it. The people that I encourage to read it are people who are fans of classical literature, and even not all the people that read classical literature love it. But as fans of classical literature, especially the old gothic horror style, and for people that can see what I was attempting to do. Who knows? Maybe I didn't do a good job, but I really love it. I thoroughly enjoy rereading it, which I don't know if every author can say that, but it's a fun story
You know, I
and
was editing
it
my
has
book
a
recently, and I kind of caught myself getting swept into it. I'm like, oh man, I think I might be doing something right here.
right. Okay, okay.
So
It's
you're
like
not
I'm doing
alone in
something
that.
right. This is good.
So yeah, you're not alone in that. But yeah, no,
Good.
it's
I didn't want to be pretentious. I debated if I should wear a turtleneck for this and be like, if you were to ask me about my work, my mind goes to art.
yeah, no, I'll just be like, yeah, your characters, they just. I used to hate it when people would say this, but they would go like, well, you know, the characters, they just took it away from me. I used to think like that's so stupid, and I started writing it, and let me tell you right now, that is true. That can happen.
I base my characters off of Greek gods because I was having trouble with their motivations.
Mm.
And so I was like, if I can just base them off of different archetypes, and sure enough, they kind of developed into their own person. And then the short story that I wrote for another author.
Well, I hope he doesn't.
Uh,
Well, I hope the father doesn't turn into a swan and tries to get some tail while he's at it. That'd be kind of awkward.
I mean, the chances aren't zero.
Well, anyway, continue what you were saying.
Oh yeah, no. So with this, I spend a very long time mapping out the outline in my head before I put pen to paper. I know some authors probably wouldn't say to do that. That's how I do it. But with the short story that I wrote for another author, it's about only 10,000 words, and I could not. I spent months trying to outline the story. I had like three big plot beats, but I didn't know how to connect them. And she reached out and needed it, so I just wrote all 10,000 words in a day. And sure enough, like the characters started making decisions, and then at the end, I had a few twists, and I'm like, "Holy crap, that just happened!" I mean, I did it, but the characters did it, and I was like, "That was a crazy twist. I didn't see that coming." Even though, like,
Yeah, no, that sometimes happens. You're just like, oh yeah, I'm just kind of, and you're like, oh, how about that?
yeah,
Again, I used to think it was dumb, like just something like writers would say to be like cute, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, idiot. And then like it's true. I'm telling you right now, it's true.
it was actually here's another maybe minor spoiler, but the Reverend is a very good person.
Mm,
The when I was writing it,
that's a
and there's all
spoiler.
well, so you see in horror, and I don't want to like say who's
Oh
good and
yeah,
who's bad, but
there's always the creepy priest running around.
yeah, and it's a trope that I actually it worked fine the first or second time, but it happens so often now. I'm like, so I every time I was writing the story, I was like, the Reverend needs to be the villain. He makes the most sense. And I was like, no, I'm tired of that trope. So I had to come up with a way. So going forward with this book and if with a sequel, one of the rules that I have for myself is the Reverend has to be good. No matter what he does, he has to be good. And I don't mean that with again the one of the themes is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't mean it like that. I mean he will be a good character. So whatever he's doing, you can rely that he's being good. Maybe he's mistaken. Maybe he's doing this, but he is a good character that does good things, and he's not bad. I did not want to fall into that trope.
Yeah, no, there's some tropes you get kind of sick of after a while.
So,
It's like in the
which I'm
post-apocalypse with that guy who starts the weird religion. You're like, okay, like, yeah.
yeah. The only trope that I can think of that's in this book is they go to a new location and start getting haunted as soon as they get there, and that happens everywhere. I explain as to why, but I mean, some tropes. I mean, you can't just have no tropes. There's something has to happen. So that's probably the one thing that I know that I did. Um, and interesting enough, the one thing that is very similar to Robert Eggers is the first chapter opens with them on a carriage going into Charleston, and which is how the witch opens up, and that's like the only similarity you can kind of like wink nod to it. Um, but yeah. Oh, and I know there's arguments on prologues and epilogues. I have both.
Mm,
You don't have to read either, but I highly recommend reading both.
all right.
It's because
I
some
mean, I
people, and
generally read them anyway, so you don't have to tell me that.
okay, there's some people who don't read them, and that's fine. There's arguments if you should have them or not have them. I easily could have written them as chapters,
I
but
always
they
view them
just
as like taste testers, to the story.
my prologue is a definite taste tester. I don't know if you saw, I shared one the other day, or I shared it the other day on Twitter. Um, Happy to share it. Um, but it's a taste test. Here, I can go and just look. If I can find it, I posted a picture. Okay, so the woods lay silent, a black mouth swallowing sound. Pines stood jagged and skeletal against the sky bruised with dust, their branches reaching upward as though clawing for the last veins of light. First two sentences right there. So that's kind of how the style is written.
Okay. I
So it's
see.
just
Hmm.
so whenever I recommend people, I go, hey, taste the prologue, see if it's your thing. If it's not your thing, don't read it. You're not going to like it because there's just more of that. If it is your thing, you might like it because there's more of that. And then someone was giving me a critique. They said, "Oh yeah, you don't start in the action and you don't leave every chapter on a cliffhanger." And I'm like, actually, I start with the atmosphere, and as soon as I set it, you're in the action. And then every chapter ends with a revelation. It might not be a cliffhanger, but you every chapter provides new information to the story. So I've read books before where you have chapters and it just feels like it why'd you add this? Like, if that makes sense. And I understand like it might be good for the world building, it might be good for this. Every chapter gives you new information or perspective as to what is going on. So the first chapter, the family gets there. The second chapter, they meet the natives. The third chapter is they meet the settlers. The fourth chapter, um, you see it from a different perspective. The fifth chapter is a flashback. The sixth chapter, all right, we're back in time, or we're back with the
In the
family.
present time.
What are they doing? Yeah. Seventh chapter, we see someone else's perspective. Eighth chapter, someone else's. And then I have the climax in the middle of the book.
No.
So like when I was telling you when they burned the witch, that's I think like chapter 10, they find who the witch is and they burn her. And then and people are like it was funny when I sent this to my very first editor. He was like, "So why do you have like another half of the book? We found the answer. Did you find the answer? Or are you finding context to that answer now?"
Interesting.
So I tried to do some experiments. I didn't really follow any rules. Again, I if you were to ask me the if any author or new author out there was asking for advice, and I bring this up because I had someone asking the other day, the only advice that I would give that works for me is when going to a book, and everybody's minds work differently. I wouldn't recommend starting with chapter one and just writing through the book. Like for an outline, sure you can write linear, like how the story goes. But the way I wrote this, the first chapter I wrote, or the first section I wrote, was a sentence, and it was the ending of the book. And it was like, this is how the book ends. This is a sentence for it, or whatnot. Then I wrote the second thing was the witch being burned, and then the third was the very beginning as to the family going there. And I didn't know what order I was going to put them in. Then I just stared at them for a while. I said, all right, I have to connect these somehow. So I said, family going there, that has to be the front. All right, how did they get to a witch burning? All right, and then how does the witch burning get to the ending? Which definitely can't say. But so I would write a sentence here, a sentence there, and then the sentences would turn into paragraphs, and the paragraphs would turn into pages, and then I would go through and then I could start tweaking and connecting the dots. So you don't have to write linear if it doesn't work for you. I would just say write the idea on paper and then write another idea and then connect the dots and then write something in between as the story. And then that's how it worked for me.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Uh, well, we've been talking for a while, and I am starting to get hungry. I haven't eaten yet today, so
Okay.
I will have to get going soon. But thank you, Dakota, for giving some of your time so we could sit down and talk about all sorts of different things.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
As I like to do before the end of these things, if you have any social media or anything like that, feel free to share it with the masses.
Yes. So really, I'm pretty much only on Twitter. I have a Goodreads. I guess every author does, but my Twitter is just Miller Dakota J. Or if you look up Dakota J Miller, I'm sure you'll find me. Um, but that's where I'm most active. I try to talk to people as much as I can. I try to be active there. So feel free to say hi. If you have any questions or critiques about the book, on there, if you end up messaging me or telling me hi or something, and you let me know you pre-ordered the book, I'm sending, and it's not much, it's just a thank you. I'm sending a picture of the first chapter in the special edition to everyone that does that, just to I don't know. I'm new to this whole marketing thing and this whole Arthur thing, but for anyone supporting me, that's just a little thank you that I've been sending to people.
All right. Well, thank you, Dakota. We should do this again. Maybe I'll read the book and maybe get you back on at some point because I generally prefer to talk with authors I know when I read their stuff,
Yeah, perfect. You can tell me
so I
if
feel
you loved
better
it or
about
if you
it.
hated it.
Anyway, uh, but yes, hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and well, until next time.